The Slovak Uprising. A Slovak Volunteer Campaigns was an uprising of Slovaks against the Hungarian rule in Upper Hungary, within the 1848–49 revolutions in the Habsburg Monarchy. It lasted from September 1848 to November 1849. Background: the year 1848 is well noted in history as a peaking moment in nationalist sentiment among European nationalities. The Slovak nation, though not fully conscious of ethnicity in 1848, were certainly an important part of the general revolts occurring in the lands of the Habsburg monarchy. After the revolutionary fervor left Paris in 1848, it traveled to Vienna, where a popular uprising ousted the reactionary government of Prince Clemens von Metternich on 13 March 1848. This revolutionary fervor soon spread to the Hungarian lands of the empire. On 15 March, mass protests in Buda and Pest, along with a proclamation of the Hungarian Diet under direction of Lajos Kossuth, saw the Hungarian kingdom declare itself independent of Habsburg domination. Slovaks were not prominently placed in this first wave of revolution to reach Hungarian-controlled lands. On 26 to 28 August 1844, a meeting between both Catholic and Protestant confessions of Slovaks met along with other factions in Liptovská and Miklos. This town in the Žilina region was the base of Slovak nationalist Michal Miloslav Hodža, uncle of future Czechoslovak politician Milan Hodža. The meeting, though with fewer than wished Catholic participation, formed a non-sectarian association called the Tatran in order to unite all Slovak groups in one national bloc. Catholics later became more involved in 1847 with their acceptance of Ludovic Stur's standardization of the Slovak language. In addition to the uniting of Slovaks in one national bloc, there were other factors leading to the rise in Slovak consciousness before 1848. In 1845, governmental authorities permitted the printing of Slovak-language newspapers for the first time. The first one was Ludovic Stur's The Slovak National News, which printed its first issue on 1 August 1845. This was quickly followed by Joseph Miloslav Herbun's Slovak Views on the Sciences, Arts and Literature, which did not have as much success as Stur's paper. Beyond the printed word, representatives of the Slovak national movement worked among average Slovaks, promoting education, Sunday schools, libraries, amateur theatre, temperance societies and other social functions. In agriculture, Samuel Jerkovich founded a credit cooperative in the village of Sobotist called the Farmers Association, which was the first of its kind in Europe. In November 1847, Ludovic Stur, the member of the Hungarian Diet Fiszavolan, spoke before his colleagues in Bratislava. In his speech to the Diet, Stur summed up his six-point platform involving problematic political and economic issues. His points were, to proclaim through the Diet the legal, universal and permanent abolishment of serfdom, achieved through a buyout of feudal contracts with state funds at minimum expense to commoners, to abolish the patrimonial court and free commoners from noble control, to allow commoners to represent their own interests via membership in county government and the Diet, to free privileged towns from county jurisdiction and reorganize the administration of royally chartered towns on the principle of representation by strengthening the voting rights in the Diet, to abolish the privilege of nobility and make all persons equal before the courts, abolish tax exemption for nobility and inheritance, ensure commoners the right to serve in public office and ensure freedom of the press, to reorganize the education system in a way to best serve the needs of the people and to ensure a better livelihood for teachers. Along with these points, of which several even met the praise of Kossuth, Stur raised the issues about the use of the Slovak language in government and the enforcement of Magyar interference in many parts of Slovak life, including religion. Events of 1848 to 1849. The events of the years 1848 to 1849 caused the build-up outbreak of the Slovak Uprising, build-up to the revolt, after the revolution in Pest Buda in 1848 March 15, and the formation of a new government on March 17. The threat of forcible Magyarization grew ever more present. In Hunt County, some of this tension came to a boiling point where two Slovaks, named Janko Král and Jan Roturides, made demands for the liquidation of serfdom and recognition of the Slovak language in schools and the government. These demands soon landed the pair in jail. On the 28th of March 1848, a vast assembly of former serfs convened by Lipto County and held in Hodz's base of Liptovsky Mikulas was used as a proving ground for systematic recognition of new rights and extended rights to national minorities. This was met well, and soon the word was spreading about possible new freedoms that would reach Slovaks, prompting some miners in central Slovakia to demonstrate rowdily before being quieted by a special commissioner from Budapest. In April 1848, Stur and Herben left Slovakia in order to attend a preliminary Slavic meeting in Vienna, which would later provide the basis for the first Pan-Slavic Congress to be held in Prague. In the meantime, back in Liptovsky Mikulas, Hodzer along with 20 delegates created a document entitled Demands of the Slovak Nation, which listed 14 points setting national and social goals for the Slovak nation. Naturally, this document was received coldly by Budapest, which subsequently imposed martial law on Upper Hungary and issued warrants for Stur, Herben and Hodzer on 12 May 1848. At the same time, uprisings among Serbs, Croats and Slovenes in the southern part of Hungary diverted Magyar attention to the south, as these conflicts were more armed uprisings than the Slovak one. Herben attended a session of the Croatian Diet on 5 July, speaking to the Croats on the plight of the Slovaks. Herben spoke so well a joint Croat-Slovak declaration was issued shortly thereafter, which only inflamed Magyar opinion. When the full Pan-Slavic Congress met on 2 June 1848, Stur, Herben, Hodzer and many other prominent Slovaks attended, along with hundreds of other Slavic delegates. This Congress was held with the aim of developing a cohesive strategy for all Slavic peoples living in Austro-Hungarian territories. Unfortunately, the Congress was cut short when an armed uprising in Prague on 12 June prompted a hurried end to the affair. However, one critical item came out of the short Congress for the Slovak cause. In the Congress, the Slovaks secured the help of two Czech military officers, Bedřich Blaudik and František Zak, in case the Slovaks came to armed blows with the Hungarians. Though many calls for autonomy came from nearly every corner of the empire, Vienna noted that at neither the Pan-Slavic Conference nor other Slavic uprisings was the thought of the breakup of the empire considered. Only this was so in Hungary. Seeing the situation as malleable, the emperor, along with his closest advisers, authorized armed action against the Hungarian uprising. This first manifested itself in the form of the leader of the Croatians, Ban Josip Ulacic, a friend of the Slovaks, who was authorized to march against the Hungarians in August 1848 after the Hungarians had defied a direct imperial order. Despite this, Vienna's response to the Hungarian uprising had stayed largely quiet and mixed. While allowing Ulacic to march against the Magyars, they had also given the Hungarian army several units in order to help preserve internal order. At the same time, Slovaks started working with Ulacic Bolsheviks Croatians by creating a Slovak Volunteer Corps. This corps was put together and gathered in Vienna from August to September 1848. In order to lead this burgeoning revolt, a Slovak National Council was organized in Vienna, where a marker stands today commemorating the spot. The council was made up of Stur, Herban and Hodza, the big three of the Slovak nationalist groups, with the Czech František Žák as commander-in-chief. Revolt. Initially, the strategy for the Volunteer Corps was not clear. However, on the 16th of September a decision was made that the 600 men of the corps would march from Vienna, up the Vaj River Valley and into Turok County and Lipto County counties via the southern Moravian town of Břeclav. When the corps arrived at the Slovak border on the 18th, they were met with 500 more volunteers from Brno and Prague. Once convened, the volunteers received arms and swore an oath on the Slovak flag. Despite nudging Viennese cooperation, when the volunteers encountered imperial troops on the road to Mijava, they were regarded coolly by the troops. Once the volunteers arrived in Mijava, an assembly of Slovaks with Herban presiding took the step of seceding from Hungary on the 19th of September 1848. Imperial troops soon ordered the Slovaks, the volunteers, to leave Mijava, though this order was rejected and instead the corps attacked an imperial detachment and confiscated its supplies. Despite this inauspicious act, imperial troops ordered both sides to halt the fighting. After several more days of indecisive armed action, the volunteers retreated back into Moravia. Not long after, the new commander of imperial forces sent to restore order in the Kingdom of Hungary, Count von Lamberg, was hacked and mangled by an irate mob in central Budapest only 3 days after arrival. This halted attempts at negotiations between Kossuth and the Imperial Party. The Viennese response was to formally order the disbandment, the Hungarian Diet, and the appointment of Ban Josip Ulacic as newest commander over Hungary. However, effective response to this latest development was also halted by another popular, pan-Germanic uprising in Vienna at the time, which resulted in the death of War Minister Count Latour on 6 October 1848. In this midst of the turmoil in Vienna, which saw the Emperor and the Imperial Diet flee to Olomouc in Moravia, Magyars stepped up measures against Slovaks, stripping the leaders of the Slovak National Council of the Hungarian citizenship and executing a handful of prisoners. This move caused the Slovak faction to appeal more to the imperial court, and despite initial concerns of the commander-in-chief Prince Windisch-Gratz, another Slovak volunteer unit was allowed to be created. Initial recruitment problems delayed this second campaign of the volunteer units until the 4th of December 1848. Throughout December and January, the Slovak volunteers under Blaudic worked with imperial troops to reoccupy Turoxes and Martin. On the 13th of January 1849, a mass rally in Turoxes and Martin was followed by the signing up of new volunteers. Acting with imperial support, Blaudic moved east and, picking up another few thousand volunteers, occupied Prešov on the 26th of February and Košice on the 2nd of March. Meanwhile, another detachment of Slovaks was defeated after running into Magyar forces near Miran in Banska Bystrica. To make matters worse, dissension between Czech and Slovak officers in the volunteer corps began to erupt. After leading activist rallies in Epes and Turoxes and Martin, Stur and Herban led a delegation of 24 men to meet the new Emperor Franz Joseph with a proposal to make Slovakia an autonomous Grand Duchy, directly under Viennese oversight with representation in the Imperial Diet. The delegates also requested a Slovak provincial diet, with further demands for Slovak schools and institutions. Despite a formal order audience with the emperor. Little real progress resulted and the Slovaks were sent packing, hoping for more productive results in the future. After several victorious battles in spring of 1849, Kossuth and the Hungarian Diet declared the Habsburgs deposed on the 14th of April 1849. Around the same time, the Slovak Volunteer Corps, largely stationed in Ava County, was dealing with internal struggles of its own. Conflicts between Czech and Slovak officers soon brought about the effectual dissolving of the corps. After Russian intervention by Tsar Nicholas I brought about the gradual fall of Kossuth and Hungarian independence. During this period, the corps was revived one final time to mop up isolated Magyar units until the eventual capitulation of Magyar forces at Vilagos on 13 August, 1849. On 9 October 1849, the Imperial Army transferred the Slovak Corps from the central territories of Upper Hungary to Pozsony, where it was formally disbanded on 21 November 1849. This marked the end of Slovak participation in the revolutions of 1848 to 1849 that swept the continent of Europe. Aftermath. Slovak perspective historians Anton Spiš and Dušan Kaplović sum up the impacts of the uprising and the era the following way. Many Magyar historians have presented a positive evaluation of Kossuth and the Magyar Revolution. On the other hand, they have branded the activities of Stur and the Slovak volunteers and their cooperation with the Viennese court and imperial army as counter-revolutionary. In truth, Stur and the Slovak leaders, by their conduct during the revolution of 1848–49, demonstrated that they well understood the nature of Magyar nationalism, which refused to even acknowledge Slovak existence. Contention that the Viennese court was oppressing Hungary economically and politically cannot be accepted without major reservations. After all, Hungary had enjoyed a permanent credit balance in trade with the nations of Cisleithania. More money had flown into the Hungarian treasury from those nations than vice versa. Indeed, even the measure of political freedom enjoyed by Hungary had been greater than that of the Czech Kingdom, or even of Austria proper, and the other ethnic groups of Cisleithania. It is possible, however, to sympathize with Kossuth and the Magyar leaders in the fear of various political combinations under active contemplation in Central Europe at the time. For instance, German unification, embracing the entirety of the Habsburg realm, or a complete restructuring of the Austrian Empire on an ethnic basis. In either of these constructs, the Magyars would have found themselves in the minority. These various considerations may help clarify, but they certainly do not justify, the total suppression of non-Magyar nationalities in Hungary. Hungarian perspective, however, the Slovak nation siding with Vienna is a widespread myth. In truth, the number of Slovaks fighting on the other side is a magnitude greater. In fact, Slovaks had a higher percentage of the population serving in the Honvédségek than Hungarians. Notable troops with purely or almost purely Slovak soldiers of the 2, the 4, the 34, the 51, the 60, and the 124 infantry battalions, and a lot of Slovaks served in the famous red-hatted 9 battalion. Also, the 8 and 10 Hussar Regiment had more companies composed from Slovak soldiers. There were also a lot of high-ranking officers in the Honvédségek who thought themselves as of Slovak patriots. The most notable one is probably Lajos Benešky, who was nicknamed the Duke of Slovakians by contemporaries, and who didn't learn Hungarian till after the end of the war.